council business meeting, and Happy New Year to everyone. Today is Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. We are located in the City Hall, the City Community Wing, and it is approximately 6 p.m. I'm calling the business meeting to order, and if you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a short moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Cook, could you call the roll, please?
Mayor Norris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Pontieri.
Present.
Councilmember Gambaro.
Present.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
All members are present.
Okay, we'll open the business meeting with public participation. I won't read through all the rules, but please look at them. Please maintain a sense of decorum, and you will have 3 minutes. When you come to the podium, please state your name, your address of record, and you'll have your 3 minutes. And please be advised that any item on the agenda do not reference during the public participation at the front. During agenda items, you will be able to address the council. So with that, we'll open public comment.
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the dais. We have high hopes, the citizens of Palm Coast have high hopes that you're going to represent us and our tax dollars well. My name's Ken McDowell. I'm a resident of the District 2 here in Palm Coast, and about 2 weeks ago, I had something delivered just like this to my front door. And I opened it up, and it had a little note in it, a little handwritten note. And the note says, Utility and City Hall Corruption, handwritten. And then it says, Flagler Live and Palm Coast Observer needs to see this. Well, I did not bring this to them, but I opened it up and looked at it, and my jaw dropped open. And each of you up here have received a copy of this letter. And I'm just wondering if there's any action going to happen because of this, because this letter is from a lady that was hired back in June for our utility department, and she got fired. And from what it appears, that she was unjustly fired for not following what she was told to do. That's up for debate, but she lists times, not times, she lists dates, she lists personalities, and I know that each of you up here on the council have received this letter and read it, so you know what I'm talking about. And there are several of us here in the city, concerned citizens, that are posting this letter out on the internet, and we're also handing out copies to several people. We're going to make this a public event. This is appalling. The information in here is absolutely appalling. It gives some insight in how business is conducted, not just in our utility department, but in our city government. And you all are new, 4 of you are new. You've been trained by those people back here and back here. That's who's training you to do your jobs. Now, how are they training you? That's up for you to decide. But don't forget, the last crew, they were trained also, and the crew before that, they were trained. There is corruption in this city hall, and I would ask each of you to investigate it, represent us, the citizens of Palm Coast, and how our money is being spent. That's all I have to say. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Please, if you have your phones on, please silence them. I forgot to mention that. Next person for public comment, please.
Hello, welcome, and Happy New Year to y'all. I never got a chance to congratulate you, so congratulate you.
State your name, Leslie.
My name is Leslie Johnson. I'm in the
Thank you.
P section of Palm Coast. I, too, received this odd letter from a little birdie. The bird must have thought I was a finch and needed to peck around a little bit here and see what's going on. I don't hold you guys responsible for what may have happened prior to your arrival. We can't do that. This is one of the first meetings, really, if you think about it, for y'all. But I really want you to go and really research this, because we're talking about tens of millions of dollars that are being brushed away. And we're talking about the water treatment plant, the consent decree, the request to sign a document fraudulently. There are some things here, now I'm not an attorney, but they just don't sound right to me. So I got a lot of questions, and I'm sure that everybody else will too. And you know, and I know, prior to your arrival, there's not been much transparency here within City Hall, and we have a lot of people who are very distrustful. I hope you understand that. So let's start this new year off. Let's take a look at this letter. I know that y'all received it on 11/23 of 2024. It was from a lady by the name of Amanda Rees. It was emailed to each and every single one of you. Okay? And so I realize we got the holidays, we got this, we got that, but you know what? She was fired on 11/14 of 2024, and you know, on 11/15, one of the local medias picked it up and dragged her name through the mud, and then do you know, on 11/15, another media outlet carried her, and on 11/18, and also on 11/25. Now, according to this letter, she was in a single room all by her onesies with one other individual. I gotta ask, who leaked? And we're talking about water, I know, that's kind of a cute pun, but really, somebody leaked. Somebody said something. And I don't know yet, I'm going to be working on it, and maybe, you know, let's just call myself a interested third party. And since I've been looking into the wastewater treatment plants and the DRIs and the sports complex and other things that this seems to tie into, it might be beneficial if you would take a look when you're able, and begin the process of your own internal investigations. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Next person for public comment.
Hello, my name is Emily Fields. I live in the L section of Palm Coast. I've lived here for 3 years, 2 of which in the W section and the last year in the Ls. I'm asking for reconsideration for the commercial vehicle ban. These blue-collar workers and small business owners are really important to Palm Coast. We have 6 young kids in our family. My husband works for a garage door company. He has to take extra time to cover and uncover his clean work van with a very tacky-looking vehicle cover every single day, rain or shine, as he works hard to provide for our family. Meanwhile, our one family car of the same make and model as his work van, a Ford Transit, sits right beside it in our driveway, and we rely on his work vehicle. We don't have any other vehicles or ways for him to get to and from work. We live on a back street with both of our vans parked neatly in front of our well-kept home. It in no way obstructs views or causes a disturbance to our community or our neighborhood, but these regulations that are in place are extremely burdensome, and I think they send the wrong message about our beautiful city to the working class. We absolutely have the ability to define what these commercial vehicles are. I know that was an issue that was raised in the past of how to define which vehicles are okay and which ones are not. We're just talking about nice, clean work vans and trucks, no oversized or run-down eyesores. And honestly, the required vehicle covers, which are really just glorified tarps, look absolutely awful, and those are the real eyesore here. Florida just passed a law in July, House Bill 1203, which amended Florida Statute Chapter 720, which prohibits HOAs and local ordinances from restricting people's own work vehicles in their own driveways. I don't know if our laws are the exception, but Palm Coast is changing and we're growing. And we are no longer solely a retirement community. Many young working families like ours are moving to this beautiful, wonderful, amazing city. And we add vibrancy and diversity and the same care and passion for nurturing this thriving community that we all share in this room. Please consider bringing this issue to vote again in light of our new leadership and for the benefit of hardworking families. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, could you state your last name again?
Fields,
Fields. Thank you.
Emily Fields. Thank you.
Next person for public comment, please. Seeing no one come forward, we will close public comments. I'll bring it back to the dais. Any comments regarding the subjects that have been brought up by the council or city manager?
I would ask for consensus to readdress the commercial vehicles. If we could just maybe get consensus on a workshop on that. I do think it's time we readdress that issue.
I would wholeheartedly agree with you, Vice Mayor. I've had the same issue. She mentioned overhead door company her husband works for. My neighbor across the street works for an overhead door company. And he did have an oversized van, and someone in the neighborhood did call on him. But those tarps are horrible, and I do think we need to relook it. So asking the council, could we get a consensus to reconsider our commercial vehicle regulations?
Yeah.
Can you get that on an agenda for us, City Manager?
Mayor, understood.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Any others? And the one matter, Ms. Johnson, we did receive those letters, and we are dealing with that situation. A lot of it we can't. This is not the forum for it. Just say that. So there's some legalities that we have to consider in that. Mr. McDowell, yours was the same subject. So there will be more to follow on this situation. Okay, so we'll move on to item E, the minutes of the City Council meeting December 17th, business meeting. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve, Mr. Mayor.
Could I get a second? Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
You're good, Ms. Cook?
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we're moving to item F, ordinance second read. Ms. Council, can you go through the formalities of that, please?
Good evening. Ordinance 2025XX amending City of Palm Coast Ordinances Chapter 17 Community Development as amended to Article 5 Short-Term Vacation Rentals.
Okay, this is concerning short-term rentals within the city. The ordinance, if you have time to read it, can I get a motion to approve the ordinance?
Mr. Mayor, before we do that, I'd like to, okay, I'll move for discussion, but I'm going to present an amendment to this ordinance.
Yes, sir, I understand. Could I get a second?
I second that.
Mr. Councilman Stevens seconds the ordinance.
Point of order. Are you moving to approve as is or moving to approve with an amendment, Councilman Gambaro?
I move to approve with an amendment.
Okay, we need to know what the amendment is before there can be a second.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. Okay.
Okay.
So, thanks, everybody, for being here tonight. I want to first and foremost highlight my position on the short-term rentals. I think this ordinance is important. It's a public safety matter, and I thank the, I guess the Triple C group from the C section for coming out and supporting this ordinance and helping us drive change here in the city. It makes sense. I also have sat down and listened to some of our business folks, business people, business owners and operators, and I think that as a small business owner, and I know some of us here on the dais can relate, we need to make sure that we balance this out, and in governing sometimes we've got to compromise. So back before I joined the council on September 24th, 2024, there was language that was deleted that said that short-term rentals does not apply to single-family dwellings occupied on a full-time basis by the owner as an on-premise permanent resident that has been declared and continues to be declared as a homestead by the property appraiser. Now, I don't think that the owner-operator should be exempt from the enforcement of the rules of what we're trying to do from a public safety perspective. But I do believe that the person limit to how many people can stay in the home. I know Councilwoman or Vice Mayor Pontieri has been pretty set on the number 10. I think that if there's an owner-operator that lives in the home, the number, the personnel, or however many people that are wanting to stay in the home should not apply.
Do they have to live, the owner has to live in the home?
So that's what I'm proposing as a compromise to still sustain the important priority from a public safety perspective of this ordinance, but also for, if the owner lives there, 9 times out of 10, they're going to keep things in order, okay? And so I move to amend this ordinance with the language that was deleted, bringing that back, but maintaining the enforcement and removing the guest limit if the owner-operator resides within the home.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make I want to make a point of clarification. I'm understanding Mr. Gambaro's motion. Are you saying that you want an in-home operator, it doesn't apply to this, or the maximum home capacity doesn't apply?
I'll read it to you.
Thank you.
So, the short-term rental person limit does not apply to in-home operators of single-family dwellings occupied on a full-time basis by the owner as an on-premise permanent resident and that has been declared and continues to be declared as a homestead by the property appraiser. Okay? So I'm amending it with that language to remove the number of people that can stay if and only if the owner-operator resides within the home. All the other aspects of the enforcement of the ordinance from a public safety perspective remain in effect. And I believe...
I'll second that, and here's why. It seems to me that
Wait, so you're seconding the motion?
Seconding the motion.
So, Mr. Mayor, just want to make sure we're doing point of it. So, Mr. Stevens is seconding the motion, then you guys go into open discussion. I just want to make sure the record's clear.
Okay.
It's your meeting if you want to go with Mr. Stevens first.
Okay, go right ahead, Councilman Stevens.
I find a contradiction here in the definition of sleeping room means any room that can be used for sleeping that is located in exterior wall, et cetera, to 2 people, adults, and a child under 1 year old. And if you have, so logic follows that if you have 4 rooms, you could have 8 people. If you have 6 rooms, you could have 12 people, because further on, I do believe in a home operator exception. That's why I seconded Mr. Gambaro's motion. Maximum occupancy shall be limited to 2 transient occupants. And why, it boggles my mind, why did we cut it off at 10? That seems to be somewhat arbitrary. If you define a sleeping quarters to be able to accommodate 2 adults and 1 child under 1, and then further on in the ordinance you say you're limited to 10, that's costing the home operator or the owner of the B&B money, and they're in business to make a buck. And so that's my feeling on it. There's a contradiction. It has to follow through. And yes, I suppose that the number 10 was established because they don't want loud and raucous behavior. But I think Mr. Gambaro's motion addresses that. Everything else, as he said, should stand. It's a good ordinance. It protects the standard of living, quality of life, safety, et cetera. But I just had a problem with that contradiction. That's all I have to say.
Let's narrow this down. Your whole point, Councilman Gambaro, is it about the number of people or about the homestead exempt properties?
Mr. Mayor, it's about the number of people.
Okay, so
Whether there's an owner-operator.
your whole issue is the number of people in the residence.
Correct.
Okay, that's what you're trying to amend.
Only when there's an in-home operator, though.
Correct.
Okay, do you have anything, Councilman Miller?
No, I think we should open it up for public commentary and then.
Okay, well, I'd like, since we're discussing, I'd like to talk about it for a while. Really, there's only been one, I'd say 3 people that have shown any contention for this policy. And during the discussion I had, and I'm sure they lobbied the rest of the council as they lobbied me, the whole issue is the number of people and about their bottom line, how much money they make. And as I told them in our meeting, your income is not relevant in this argument. The quality of life in our neighborhoods are relevant. If the issue is you want to own a true bed and breakfast, whatever, a hotel, buy a hotel. But you are living in a residential neighborhood. And during the last city council meeting, we agreed, I'm sorry, Mr. Stevens, you were not here, but we agreed during that last meeting that the limit would be at 10 to control the number of people that are in and out of these neighborhoods. I had a gentleman before the meeting came up to approach me that lives in the C-section, and he said, Mike, he said, we really need this passed because we had 18 people in the house next to us over the weekend. And that is not a reasonable amount. And personally, I thought we came to a reasonable compromise during the last meeting as far as the number of people. And to me, it's 2 people per bedroom. We can go ahead, but I will be offering an amendment as well. But we need to narrow down this number of people, the total number of people authorized to be in the residence. That's what we need to narrow down. Now, council, do we need to vote on that amendment, or does it have to be wholly refined before we can vote on the matter?
So what I would recommend, if you're in discussion, so if, Mr. Mayor, if you want to add stuff to this motion, then you can bring that up. But what I would recommend, if you're not going to add it to this particular motion, then it would not, but you could still discuss it.
Okay, do we have to vote for the amendment to the total ordinance before the next motion? And can we do that and still pass the ordinance overall?
So to answer your question first, if it's passed as is, it would have to go back with Mr. Gambaro's amended motion. It would have to go back to a 2-read because this is a major change.
Okay, so that's the whole discussion I have with council about my motion, well, the amendment that I would like to do. And if we can't come to a consensus on the number of people, we're going to have to do another read on this, and we can discuss my amendment or my changes that I would like to see in the ordinance.
1 second, let me process this. So,
That's why we pay you,
I know,
council.
I appreciate that. So what I would say is you're addressing this amendment. Now, if you're open for discussion to talk about possible other changes, you can add that, but you're addressing Mr. Gambaro's motion first.
Okay.
That would be the correct way to do it technically. But in the efficiency of time, so in the efficiency of time, you can bring up discussions of what possible things you would want to change, but you need to be focused on his amendment.
Okay.
And if he likes that, he can also withdraw.
Yes.
So that,
Okay.
Yes.
Well, to further the discussion, I think 10 people is reasonable, and we can discuss it further, or we can vote to approve that amendment.
It would still need to go out to public comment.
After public discussion. Okay, are we good with that?
Mayor, if I may, just quickly, I also met with Mr. and Mrs. Davison, and you know, I was very transparent with them, as I am with everybody, in that 18 people is never going to be okay with me in a residential neighborhood. I don't care if you live there, if you don't live there. I think that I understand their position as far as them being good owners and operators and probably being very respectful to their neighbors and having a larger home that can accommodate that amount of people. But at the end of the day, it's a residential neighborhood, and you bought a home in a residential neighborhood. And to your point, if you want a bed and breakfast, or if you want to operate something else on a larger scale, then we have zoning in different areas for that. My fear, Councilman Gambaro, with regards to your proposed amendment, is that we'll see people say that they live in the home and try to claim homestead when in fact they don't, so that they can skirt this requirement. So that's my concern, and people will always find a way to take advantage of legislation. I understand that, that's not lost on me. But our job is to, and you know, when I put my attorney hat, my job is to think about the future and play devil's advocate. And I feel like this is one way where people could skirt that rule. So I do want to hear from the public on this. I am, you know, willing to think about, should we increase from 12 months to 24 months as far as children that, you know, could be permitted with families, you know, little things like that, but to just allow an exemption of this nature, I'm not in agreement with, but I understand the concerns. I just think that we have more people whose quality of life we need to protect by moving forward as is than allowing this exception for a small group.
Before we open it up to public discussion, I would like to say that if we can work through this issue with this amendment to ordinance, my thought is when it comes to children, I would say 0 to 3 years up to toddlers, they would be exempt. So if anybody's going to come forward and talk about that, that's the amendment I want to make to the ordinance, is because children from 0 to 3, you know, a lot of people sleep with their toddler sleeps in the bed with them. So I have no problem with 0 to 3. So, but we'll come back to that. But right now we're going to open it up to public discussion as far as the initial ordinance and the proposed amendment by Councilman Gambaro. Sir?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councillors. My name is Roger Cressy. Live in Claremont Court. I am from the Canal Community Coalition. First of all, just to say thank you for the hard work so far. There's certain people we've done workshops with and worked hard to get these through. We're really keen that this goes through now. It's taken a long time to just keep on revisiting it and opening up things that we've already discussed. As to your point, Mayor, we discussed the fact that it was a cap of 10. There was already a debate and a discussion. It should be closed. It should be done. Honestly, Mr. Stevens, what you were saying earlier about, you know, you can't see the logic. The fact is, you take 10 people and their children and put them on a patio or a pool deck across from your house. I promise you, it is a big number of people already. So just that. We know so far, so that limit of 10 is, we think, is sacrosanct. 40 properties in the last 6 months. So I think the numbers are incorrect anyway of the registration of them in the first place. We know they're inaccurate. But of the properties that we know as STRs, 40 of them have had complaints against them by our community in the last 6 months. So, and that's all sorts of things, from noise to lights to abuse from them to people parking on their gardens to trespassing and fishing. There's numerous things, and I'm sure I'm missing out some. We still have problems enough, even with this new, if you like, minimal requirement that we're asking for. There will still be issues, and we still have 3 of our members who have now put their houses on the market. A person at the end of our street actually sold their house at probably about $100,000 below price so that they could get out of Dodge, away from the STRs. So, I mean, we ourselves spent New Year's Eve hiding out in public away from our house so that we could avoid a large family of people in the Airbnb across the road. This is our lives, it's our livelihood, it's our property. And when someone starts to talk about somebody else making money out of a residential property in a residential area, it starts to get my ire up. But I don't want to end on that. I want to just say thank you. I ask for your consideration of this in a balanced way. We want to make sure that this is fair, and this is certainly, we believe, more than fair at this stage. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next public comment.
Thank you. Joel Davison. And Airbnb itself, in our own little dinky bubble that we have, it was created for people to make extra income by renting rooms in the home that they live in. I would not want to live next door to a home that's owned from somebody out of town, that we don't have their personal number, and they're renting through anybody, and 10, 12 people could show up at that house for a party or something. I would not want to live next to that home either. So I'm 100% in agreement. I assume our C-section people over here, I'm in 100% agreement with our C-section folks. I don't want that. I don't think anybody that does Airbnb should rent the home without themselves living there, because it's too much of a problem. We could double the price that we charge for our home if we vacated it. About half of the requests that we get when people do request all 5 bedrooms, as soon as we tell them that we live there, they always say, well, you're not going to be there when we're there, right? We say, no, we live there. We will be here the whole time you're here. At least half of those reservation requests cancel. Why? Because they're wanting to have a party. So we solve the problem by living there for our little bubble. And again, there's not many homes in Palm Coast. Even though there are a lot of Airbnb homes, there are not many that have 5 bedrooms available to rent. We might be the only ones that live in our home and have 5 extra bedrooms, because we had 4 children. We have a 6-bedroom house. They're all grown and gone. So, double our price. This is our neighborhood. These are our neighbors, our friends, and Kathy reads everybody at the Riot Act when they check in. Look, these are our neighbors around here. We want them to like us. We haven't had complaints in 9 years. We've been doing this. Over 2,000 individual reservations representing about 10,000 human beings have come through our home in the last 9 years. We've never had complaints. And again, prove the homestead tax exemption. Our cars are parked and registered there. Yeah, somebody's going to find a way to break the rules. It's just like gun control. You make a bunch of gun control rules, criminals still get guns, right? So people will break rules, but not us, our little bubble. So if there could just be an exemption for people like us that's being offered, suggested, which we so appreciate, that as long as we live there and we're taking care of our home, let us worry about how many people can be in our home. And to your point about 18 people, they're never there at the same time. People come, they go. We had 18 people a couple Saturdays ago. There was never 18 people at home at one time except for 1 in the morning when everybody was sound asleep. And the final thing was one other way to could children 10 and under not be counted instead of 1 year or even 3 years. So thank you.
Hi there, I'm Kathy Davison. I live at Palm Coast, Pine Grove Drive, and here in Palm Coast. Years ago, we had a lady that was local here that actually wanted to rent our house for a family reunion. We invited her to our house to let her see what everything was, and she knew exactly how everything was ran. She did not come. The day of her reunion, when family members were coming in, all of a sudden she shows up and she goes, "Oh, you live here?" We said, yeah, we live here. We sent you the rules. We sent you everything. We invited you to come. You chose not to come. So she begged us to leave. Please leave. Let us have our family reunion without you. Please take your dogs. We said, absolutely not. We're here. We told you. We didn't hiccup when we said this. She canceled her reservation. Now that lets me think that there was probably going to be more going on than what was being spoken. So after a few hours, so she couldn't find another place that would make her happy, she called us back up and begged us to please leave the home and let them rent our home. And we said no. My husband informed her, he said, look, you are welcome in our home, and we are welcome in our home. and that's how it will be. And their family reunion, I'm sorry, probably got canceled, and that isn't my fault. We live there, we inform people, and we stress the rules. When I give a tour through my house, I let them know these are our neighbors, I like our neighbors, they like us, and I want to keep it that way. So after 10 o'clock at night, the sound must be down. The sound must be down in our house. You can have fun, you can play games, but you must keep it down. We have other guests. We watch what we do, and we don't have complaints because of it. Now, we talk about exceptions. In your parking lot, you've got all kinds of exceptions. Anybody can park here. You've got exceptions for EV vehicles. You've got exceptions where you got a parking spot, and you all got parking spots. You have exceptions for pregnant women, for wheelchairs, for veterans. I don't understand why you can't make exception for somebody who's following the law, who's had a business for almost 10 years now, who doesn't have complaints, who makes sure that I am there whenever there are parties and stuff that are large people that are there. I ask you to consider anywhere between, 12 to 14 people. That could fit in our home. We are there monitoring. We don't allow, matter of fact, I was down at a yard sale about last summer, and one of the ladies says, you own the Airbnb up the road. And I said, yeah. She goes, I heard about your rules. They are cruel. When I say cruel, they're very strict. We don't allow drunks drinking, getting drunk. We don't allow smoking and all that kind of stuff on private. We don't allow cussing. We don't allow loud music outside the house. We don't allow that because we keep it very family friendly. I'm fighting for my business that I've ran successfully for almost 10 years now, and I ask you to not take away my business. You talk about selling homes. If we can't make the money, I'm sorry, but if we can't make the money, this is the home our daughter who passed away lived in. I'm hoping that we can keep it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, Mike Solora in the C-section. As far as the amount of people, there has to be some amount of people that are allowed because someone can have 40 people, so they need to have some kind of limit on the amount of people. I'm not saying, some houses maybe are bigger and maybe could have, more, but the thing is then you start letting people, they're going to bend the rules and then they're going to, do what they want to do. Trying to prove that someone's staying in the house could be hard. If you do change it and allow more people for these bed and breakfast, I guess you'd call them, then if they're caught not following the rules, then they should be penalized heavily. I think that 3 years old and younger, staying with their parent in a room is fair. When they start getting a little bit older than that, then they start running around and stuff, and they're not maybe supervised as much. We worked hard all our lives to be able to retire and have peace and quiet in our neighborhoods. And to have, 15 people in a house with a bachelor party or something, it's just not right. I'm sure no one on this council would want that for themselves next door. And, I worry too that if there's 3 or 4 of them on my street, that if I do go to sell my house, it's going to sell for less because people don't really want to have these short-term rentals in their neighborhood. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Quinn Cressy from C-Section. First of all, I would just like to address the number issue, and I understand the sentiment of wanting to raise the age for children to 3 years, but I think that already last time we spoke about it, we kind of, were okay with the 1 year mark. The issue isn't so much the children themselves as who it invites to come. And family reunions in C-section are not a great idea. Our homes are very close together, less than a third of an acre, and we are surrounded on 4 sides by people, right across the canal. Homes are being built especially as STRs. So rather than being built as a home with coverings on the windows or a garden, a flower garden, they're just built as facility venues. And so when we increase the limits, what it does is it invites different types of groups to come. So that's why we are all so set on that 10 person limit at the most. They can still create tremendous noise, just being 10 people. Mr. Stevens, regarding small business, most of us here are small business people. A lot of us have small businesses. A lot of us are working from home and are constantly interrupted in our work. Our businesses have had restrictions on them. I would like to recommend that people who do have businesses, STRs, should register as businesses. For example, if there is a bed and breakfast, essentially, then it should be registered as a bed and breakfast rather than as an STR. So thank you. Those are my comments.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hello, Deborah Alexander, again,
Yes,
from
ma'am.
60 Colchester. So the idea of them having the owner live on the property, who's going to police that? You? Are you going to go check every one of them? Who's going to hold them accountable? You? What about you? You're the big guy. Maybe it should be you. Maybe you. You look grouchy. That would work. Yeah. I would totally act right if you showed up at my door. Do that. Yeah. We have rentals down by us. There was one house during Bike Week. They had 7 cars. There's no room for 7 cars in our streets. Thank you. So, you know where they parked? In the yard and in the swells. It was lovely. Not lovely at all. Would you like that at your house? What about the huge motor home that was 3 doors down from us at the Airbnb? Huge. It was massive. There were people in the home and in the motor home. It was like ants. Would that be okay next door to you? They're not quiet. Most people aren't pleasant. They think this is not a residential area. They are on vacation, and they want to do what they want to do on vacation, and I get that. So go to some place else where you're meant to be for vacation. Stop coming to my house when I didn't invite you. We did not invite them. You didn't invite them. I want to know who's going to be watching. You have great ideas, but who's going to enforce them? I notice when I look at y'all, you look away. My children do that. They're like, not me. So, except for the grouchy one, he looked right at me. I like him the best right now, as long as he does it. Seriously, who's going to make this work? It's not my job. I didn't hire on for this. I bought a nice house in a quiet neighborhood, and now it's not. And now you're the ones that said it's okay that they could be the bullies in my sandbox. So I want to know who's going to regulate it, who's going to watch it. You have these great ideas. Who's going to make sure that it's going to happen? Raise your hand. Go ahead. Oh, no one's raising their hand. I see. That says it all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mark Stansel, Seminole Woods. There should be a limit on the number of people, but my concern is who's going to enforce the violations that we are going to be incurred with these things. A lot of people that have these don't even live here. Some do, some don't. A lot don't. Code enforcement's they're not police officers, so they can't actually stop anything. And they'll give a warning, and the next day they're gone, so that just falls by the wayside. You don't have the proper violations set up to handle short-term rentals. You need to do that, or, whatever you pass, then it's going to be another problem down the road because you didn't fix it this time. Make sure you've got violations that homeowners that are renting these places will have to suffer the consequence if they don't take care of their homes and the people they rent them to. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stansel.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sherry Montgomery. I also live in the C-section on Claremont Court. And I just I'm sitting back thinking and listening to the conversation, and I appreciate everybody's opinions. I think when I look at this, we have 2 very different things we're talking about. We're talking about the couple that rents their rooms and are requesting extra exception. But to me, they're almost, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm hearing that it's more of a bed and breakfast. They may rent one room, they may rent two. They may not, they may rent the whole home. What we're looking at in our neighborhood are those short-term rentals where they rent the entire house. That is very different than what I'm hearing is happening with this family and their home. So I think, is that a bed and breakfast business, or is it a short-term rental? And I think that's the clarification that I'm having and struggling with. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jeremy P. section. I also have one of these STRs right down the road from me, next to that big-ass house next to me. Who's going to enforce any code? He's not. They're not back there. No one's going to enforce no code around here. Maybe if you leave your trash can out in front, they'll give you a ticket for that. Paint your house the wrong color, they'll give you a ticket for that. But y'all aren't going to enforce no building code. Y'all aren't going to enforce this STR. Y'all are wasting everyone's time. Y'all are wasting your time. Because I have been coming here for 2 years for the same damn problem. Y'all aren't enforcing no codes around here. You had an email this morning from me. You've been attached to the emails. I expect more actions from you. You've been to my shop. You and I have talked. I want to start seeing actions, right? I asked that when you came on. Now start producing.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Eric Jostin, C-section. Mr. Mayor, first thing I want to address is the age limit. I think 0 to 3 is okay. I'm pretty good with that, and we're going to move on. Mr. Gambaro, I've worked on this for 7 months with the Canal Community Coalition and the City Council. We've been around the block on the maximum number of people. Most of the residential homes in my neighborhood anyway, in the C-section, are 2, 3, and 4 bedroom homes. They're not going to accommodate more than 10 people. We came up with the number of 10 because of the problems with parking, the problems with the noise, and also the problems with our infrastructure. We know we can't flush our toilets when it rains, okay? So we don't need a house full of people flushing toilets, right? So it's got to stay at 10. Mr. Stewart, I can tell that you've had some lobbyists approach you that were business owners. I've been a business owner all my life. I've lived with a lot of rules.
Sir, hold on a second. Would a gallery please hold it down? I have a hearing problem. Some of the other people up here have a hearing problem. Continue, sir.
Okay. I'm not trying to beat you up, but I do see that you have been lobbied by business owners crying the blues. Well, we just had 2 business owners up here telling us that their customers are asking them to get out of the house when they rent the house. If they get asked enough, ultimately they're going to do it, and that's going to make for more problems. So I think things should stay the way they are as far as the ordinance. I'm okay with the age of the children. I'm not okay with going over 10 people, and I don't care about other business owners. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Terry Alexander, C-section, and again, I want to thank everybody for what you do, and you've got a hard job coming up. My comment is more of a concern, and maybe it has been addressed, and maybe it hasn't, but if there's a limit of 10 people in the home, is that 10 people on the property? Because what we're seeing sometimes is these giant motorhomes show up. So are people going to be able to think, well, we've only got 10 in the house, and then there's people in the motorhome? Maybe that's been addressed, or maybe somebody's thought about that, but if they haven't, that could be a problem. And another concern is like, I don't have a motorhome, by the way, so it's not a problem, but I know that if I did have one, it's my understanding I would be limited to how many days a month I could have that on the property. So I'm wondering if these short-term rentals, say somebody comes in, brings one, they park it there, they leave in 3 days, and another one comes in. It's kind of like not fair for what people don't want to look at the boats and the motorhomes, that if these people are going to get an exemption because they're only going to be there for a day or 2 or 3 days, it's it was just a thought, but especially a thought, maybe somebody shows up at a motorhome, they're having a family reunion or whatever, and they're thinking that they're exempt from the 10-person rule. It's just has anybody thought about that, or has that been looked at, or?
That's part of the ordinance, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
Yes, sir.
much.
Any more public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Denise Henry, P section. I have a suggestion for the Davidsons. Maybe you could grandfather something in. Usually when you pass some kind of ordinance or something, then there is some kind of grandfather clause. They've been doing it for a long time. However, I do believe that over 10 people in a single-family home is a bit much. Because a lot of people don't realize that when you have these short-term rentals, it's not like once a year. It's not like, you have your family reunion, a lot of family comes, you have a one-year party. This is every weekend or every week where you have a ton of people, and we have to take that into consideration. Plus, even though I appreciate your amendment, owners aren't really going to stay in their house to say they're going to stay in the house unless they're just renting one room to a short term. If they're renting to a family, they're going to leave, and that's just the truth of it. And so I don't see, if a house is homesteaded, how can that be a business? So I don't think that should be some kind of exemption. Like if you're going to rent as a short-term rental, then I think you're considered a business. You shouldn't get a homestead exemption, and that's just my opinion.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further public comments?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council. John Nukowski from the C section. We visited and revisited this thing since July, and there's always a 11th hour addendum or recommendation. And I really felt that we should have been past this by now, but I'll reiterate, 10 people is a lot of people to have next door to you. If you have one on each side of you, you've got 20 people. And they're all using the pool, they're using the yard. Not only is it their own noise and their voices carry, and the kids carry, their voices carry. When they come in at night and they start opening and closing their doors to get their suitcases out, it may be 10, 11, it may be midnight. They leave in the morning to beat the traffic. It might be 5 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden you hear the doors opening, closing, people talking, get in the car, blah, blah. It's constant. If this happened once or twice a year, so be it, My neighbors have birthday parties once or twice a year. It doesn't bother me at all. But for some reason, it's just so much worse knowing that you'll never see these people again. They have nothing to do with us, our neighborhood. And the owners typically set up a business in our residential neighborhood that I think is just ridiculous. Recently I looked at one near me, and they're a 2-bedroom home, no pool. They're getting $7,500 a month. That's what they're advertising through Airbnb. And we're afraid to charge them anything. We're afraid to make any regulations. I think 10 is very generous, and I wish you would just drop that. And I really believe that the 1-year-old and under is what we agreed to before, and we should stick with that. But I do thank you for your consideration. I thank you for all of your time and your efforts. It's been very difficult, and we just would like to get this settled so that we can have a normal life again. I said it once before, home may very well be the most important word in the English language. Everything starts and ends in your home. When you're away on business, you're away on vacation. Last day of vacation, you can't wait to get home. So we want to go home, enjoy our time with our families, enjoy our quietude, our yards, and without being bothered with people that don't care about us, people that we'll never have relationships with. The owner-operators, I know they have relationships with their neighbors because they're there. But we will never see that with the people that are absentee owners. And it's too bad that the state of Florida is allowing it. And I think we even need to go further with our state Senate to reiterate the importance of having a residential neighborhood and have residences in the neighborhood, not necessarily businesses that disrupt the neighborhood. Thank you.
Any further public comments?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Russ Boley, again, C-Section. One thing that I've not heard has been addressed, it may have been, but one of the big issues that's related to the number of people is the parking. If you regulate the parking, you're sort of regulating the number of people in the residence. It's a residential area. Four cars can fit in most of the driveways fairly easily. But when you have many more than that, they're parking in the swales, they're parking all over the place. And I haven't heard any mention of regulating the number of motor vehicles that are parked at these places. And that perhaps should be part of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. But it is part of the ordinance. We are. It's
okay.
It's in the ordinance.
All right, thank you.
Any further public comments? Seeing no further public comments, we'll come back to the dais. Does anyone have anything to add?
I'd like
Go ahead, Councilman Stevens.
Point of clarification here. Everything, we've gone pretty far afield here. Everything that you folks are talking about is in the ordinance. Everything, including motorhomes, parking within the driveway, safety features, everything is there. The only thing we're quibbling about is two people. And the reason why we're quibbling about two people is because in the ordinance itself, it defines the maximum number of people per room. So logic carries forth. If you have 6 rooms, according to the ordinance, you can have 12 people. That's the only thing we're quibbling about. Safety, parking, you have to park within the driveway, you can't bring motorhomes, you have noise ordinances, you have gardens ordinance. It's a well-written ordinance, and as Mr. Gambaro brought up, the only thing we're quibbling about is 2 people, because that's what's defined in the ordinance.
Any further comment from council members? Sir, please. So, council, I'm sorry.
Ty, you got anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, it's tough. I understand that we do have, good Airbnb operators that abide by the rules. But there has to be a line somewhere that's drawn, and wherever that line is drawn, someone will have a problem with that. I'm afraid of the slippery slope of adding more, and then it becomes a problem later that doesn't address the problems that we're trying to get fixed right now. In terms of the age limitations, I'd be open to that. I just have a question for the city attorney, whether that constitutes a major change and would require 2 more readings as well.
We've already discussed that.
So, if you're that specific, just changing it from 1 to 3, I would not define that as a major change. It would not need 2 reads of the ordinance. It's not a controversial issue, whereas here, this is a major change and would deem controversial, so we need to do the notice requirements.
Councilman Gambaro, you got anything further?
No, I agree with 99% of the ordinance. Right? I don't want these issues across the street either, but what I'm trying to do is strike a balance with the business community. And so, and with folks that have been operating in good faith for almost 10 years. And so, Mr. Mayor, so let's do this clean. My recommendation, I'd like an up or down vote on my amendment, and then we'll move on to whatever else you want to do.
Yes, sir, I appreciate that. Vice Mayor, you have anything further? Okay, I'll do my little comment here. Regarding parking, it is in the ordinance as far as how many cars can fit in the driveway. That's all very specific. It's specific on trailers and RVs for loading and unloading only. That's an easy one. One of my points I'd like to make is 18 people. You have 18 people in a house. Say everybody converges on one house for a weekend. 18 people. What if they have 18 cars? That's my problem. Motorhomes, I was already covered. Grandfathering in, I don't think in this case we should be grandfathering in any houses within the community. Council, can you read the amendment, because that is what we are voting on, the amendment to the ordinance, right?
Yeah. So, and Mr. Gambaro, correct me if I get
Okay.
this wrong.
Yeah.
So Mr. Gambaro is His motion is to amending the ordinance where it allows in-home operators not apply to the maximum capacity requirements of 10.
So everyone on the council is clear on that amendment? Ms. Cook, could you call the vote, please?
Vice Mayor Pontieri?
No.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
No.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Norris?
No.
The motion fails.
We will now, please hold it down. We will now move on. I would like to amend the main motion to change the age of children from 0 to 3, so that's infants and toddlers as being an exception to the rule.
Mr. Mayor, so are you making the motion or are you asking?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to do that unless I hand over the gavel. Can I get a motion for that, please? Would someone be willing to?
I don't think you can ask for a motion on that, just point of order, but I am happy to make a motion.
There you go.
To accept the ordinance as is with an amendment to specifically section 17-71, maximum occupancy, where it states maximum occupancy does not apply to transient occupants that are 1 year of age, 0 years of age to 3 years of age or younger. Or it can be 3 years of age or younger, however council thinks it's.
0 to 3 years old?
Yeah.
0 to 3. Can I get a second for that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. For discussion amongst the council, anyone have any discussion? We'll open this item, this specific amendment open to public comment. So anyone that wishes to address this amendment, please come forward. See, no one. Last chance, going once. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Mayor and Council, it is Quinn Cressy again. I can see you guys are all leaning towards this 0 to 3, and I'm just going to put my case forward again. So it's not, again, about the children, and as a mother and a grandmother myself, I really do understand the need to accommodate little ones. However, if we have a family reunion, we have the grandparents, and then we have 3 couples, okay? Now that puts us at 8 people, plus all the children. The expansion of the age group, not counting those little ones, creates more adults, creates possibility for more adults and more people. So it's not, so once we start counting the little children, then it limits the adults too. So that's my argument, and I think that if there's a family of 6 and then they have little ones that come, they fill up till 10, I think that's quite enough to have 6 adults and a bunch of little ones, including those ones. So that's my argument. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any more public comments concerning the amendment to the ordinance? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comments. Back to the dais. I think we have been, well, I'm sorry. Anyone else before I go? This was my, kind of what I wanted, but I'll make my comments. We have, this is only the second time that most of this council has seen this ordinance. So we're doing the best we can, and I think we have been very reasonable. And once you start making all those exceptions to the rules, it just gets worse. And I've had people that talked to me about this. They openly admitted that they were violating the rules as far as parking trailers in the yard like that. So if you give a little, people take a little. If you give a lot, people will take a lot. So with that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilor Gambaro.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at all this and, isn't this another exception to the rule?
Well,
And isn't it better just to pass it clean the way we had it, given that we've had all this debate?
No, I personally don't think so. I think we're being more than reasonable on this one. And this could come back to the city council for amendment in the future, but we have to do something because these people in the C section, their lives are being altered completely, unacceptable. And I may be the exception to the rule setting on the city council, because I've had an Airbnb go in behind my residence, and it was very uncomfortable. And because I had to call the sheriff's department twice in one weekend over some people, and I think we're being more than reasonable. I truly do. So if there's no other comments?
Just really quickly, I agree with you, Mayor, that I think we need to go ahead and get this passed. I do think there are things on both sides that people would still like to see worked on. So I think I'm open to that. I know I've spoken to Mr. and Mrs. Davison about, some type of process where they get a permit for certain weeks, like Bike Week, where we know we have a lot of people come into the community and quite candidly spend a lot of money in our community. So there might be, further things that can be looked at and explored from a permit perspective, to keep those tourism dollars coming in. But as it stands, I do think that we need to go ahead and move forward with passing this. And I want to thank you all, because I know you came on kind of late, and you've really grabbed this by the horns and worked with us to get this passed. So I do commend you for that, and I look forward to getting this done tonight.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Violations, it's in the ordinance, and we're going to police it. And there's more to come on that, just let me say that. So if you can, Council, could you read the amendment as stated so we can vote on that, please?
Amending the ordinance, we're changing the exception for children ages from 0 to 1 to ages 0 to 3 to not be applied to the maximum capacity.
So everyone's clear on the amendment?
So we're voting specifically on the amendment, then we're going to come back and vote on the whole ordinance? Or
No,
is this all at
be,
once?
that's included all at once.
Okay.
With the amendment, this will be it. This will be done with it. So Ms. Cook, could you please call the vote?
Vice Mayor Pontieri?
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Norris?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will move on to item G, ordinance of the first read. Council, could you please read it?
Ordinance 2025-XX, amending Chapter 2, Administration, Article 4, Retirement, Division 2, Volunteer Firefighter Retirement System and Trust Fund.
Okay, this first read, Chief Berryhill is not here. If you don't know, we had a pretty bad accident out on Seminole and Sesame. So the city manager is going to deal with this ordinance. Go ahead, city manager.
Mayor, City Council, the background in your agenda summary states...
City manager, let's pause it for a second. Let the people that are leaving leave.
Sorry, really quickly while we're waiting, I just also want to thank staff for working on the STR ordinance as well. You all have put in a lot of work, so thank you. Thanks, Jason.
Okay, city manager, go ahead and continue, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mayor, for recognizing one of our volunteers who was injured this evening. As it regards to the ordinance, there's just a simple housekeeping item that we agreed through negotiations with the career union on this plan. One is that we've changed the effective date to February 2nd. It will not change any of the financial implications of the plan, according to our actuarial results. And then the second one was the union had requested the ability that there's a one-time opt-out, and that was not included in the original language, and it's thus provided in the language in front of you today. And that's all of the background, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Open the item up for discussion. Well, do we need a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve this change to the pension.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. We'll open it up for discussion on the dais. We've all read through this, and it's just changing the dates and giving the one-time opt-in, opt-out. and Chief Berryhill explained it pretty well, and I read through it yesterday or today. So I have no issues with it. Anyone have any other discussion? Vice Mayor? Everything's good? Okay, we'll open this item up for discussion to public comments. See no one come forward.
I'll come forward. So I'm Richard Kivett. I live in Lehigh Trails. So what are you changing on this amendment? Are you saying that the volunteer firefighters get this guy was injured, a firefighter was injured?
No, sir, I was just acknowledging the reason Chief Berryhill was not here is because we had someone injured at a site.
Okay.
That's why he's not presenting the ordinance.
Okay, so is this a new ordinance, or you guys changed it?
No, sir, it's just some language that need to be clarified and given an optional one-time opt-in or opt-out, right,
So
City
what
Manager?
that's all they're doing is what she talked about, those two? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I was just unclear what it was saying, so I wasn't sure when I read that. That's all I needed. Thank you.
Good to go. Thank you, sir. Seeing any further public comments? We'll bring it back to the dais. Can we call the vote, please, Ms. Cook?
Vice Mayor Pontieri?
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Norris?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. We move on to item H, resolutions. Go ahead, council.
Resolution 2025-XX, short-term rental fee structure.
And the Chief of Staff will be giving us a presentation on this one.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Jason DiLorenzo, Chief of Staff. No, sir, there's no presentation with it. It is from past discussions about short-term rentals. We understood it was City Council's direction to be cost recovery on this. We estimate the cost to be approximately $120,000. We'll evaluate that after our first year and see if that is accurate. You'll remember City Council last year authorized an additional officer, code enforcement officer. We will not have a single enforcement person. We'll work in our zones like we normally do to be more responsive. The fee structure is on page 50 of your packet. It is $375 for an annual registration plus a $75 annual inspection. If there's a change or transfer of ownership for the short-term rental property, it will be an additional $375 plus a $75 inspection to ensure that their application is correct. And then if there is a change of the responsible party, you'll remember that's a defined term in the ordinance. There will be a $35 fee if you would like us to process that change as well.
Okay.
We anticipate that this will generate approximately, at the current number of short-term rentals we believe we have, that this will generate approximately $123,000.
Okay. Any discussion on the dais?
I just have a few questions, Jason. The registration fee, it says annual, but so that means every single year, the same Airbnb, or I shouldn't say that, STRs would have to pay this fee every year, correct?
That is correct, and it's a flat fee, and, but it does have a CPI adjustment annually.
Okay, and then the annual inspection, why is that parsed out? Why isn't it just $450, which will include an annual inspection?
Just help identify the cost, right? There's going to be time associated with that inspection going with the applicant and reviewing, going inside the home, and I think it was just a way to manage the time a little bit better.
Okay, so what is your?
Also because, I'm sorry to interrupt, if we have to re-inspect, right, then it's broken out.
I see. Okay, so what is your timeline? Is the annual registration fee due upon filing an application?
Yes.
And then when you all go out for the inspection, that's when the 75 would be due?
We'll probably do it at one time. Well, we're going to put it into our permitting software, and it'll, so we have the record of it.
And how are we planning on monitoring these going forward
Do you mean publicly or internally?
internally?
Internally. So we're going to have a master record of them. It'll have to be managed by someone on staff to make sure it's up to date all the time. We're currently reviewing them monthly to make sure that we have the current number and that they're being reported to Flagler County correctly. So we already have a little bit of that going, but we'll have a master list that we're working off of.
Are we leveraging any technology that the county might have?
The county has it's my understanding, I'm not too familiar with it, but they have the ability for us to cross-reference them.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion or questions from the dais? I don't know if the rest of the council received this email today, but I had someone email me that knew that we were tackling the STR situation in our city, and they have, from their proposal, from what I'm assuming they're going to try to follow up, but it's AI where they cycle through and they inspect everything. AI is tracking everything. They know all the short-term rentals. It doesn't matter across which platform. Did you guys receive that email? Okay, so someone is leaning forward saying Palm Coast may need this software. So we'll just have to look at and do a cost-benefit analysis on that, or if that's something that we'd be even willing to entertain.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we've met with a couple of those companies. I'm not sure. I did not receive that same email, I don't believe. But I know we've met with a couple of companies, and as soon as we started talking about this, we started getting, solicitations.
Inquiries, yes.
Right, yeah. And the one thing we have not found one that's able to do yet is break up our zip code. So our zip code extends outside the city limits. The 32137 zip code extends outside the city limits and includes many short-term rentals that are not located within the city of Palm Coast. And from who we've discussed so far, they have not been able to break those up. It would seem to me that it's possible, but,
with the power of AI, I think anything's possible, to
Yeah.
tell you the honest truth. So we'll be moving forward on that, but no further discussion on the resolution as read or presented by the chief of staff?
Mr. Delarenzo, I'm just forwarding it to you, so at least you'll have the same
thank
thing.
you.
we have.
Okay, so you'll see the same thing we see.
Yep.
Open it up the public comment? Anyone have any public comment on this matter? Yes, ma'am.
Denise Henry again, P section. Are you considering putting a limit on the amount of certificates, or whatever you want to call lodging certificates? Because that's important. When I did send information to you and also letter, that in Georgia, when my daughter bought her cabin as a vacation home and then decided to rent it as Airbnb, there was only 400. Now, 3 years later, there's 2,600. So I understand the city would like to make some money, but I think you need to consider putting a limit of the number of certificates, or whatever you want to call it, out. And then if someone does no longer do it, there's a waiting list, and then they can go on. They do that in South Carolina. So it's something to consider so that we're not overwhelmed. I mean, I just took the number he gave, divided it by the 450, and there's 273 right now in Palm Coast. I didn't even realize there was that many. So I think it's something the council needs to consider.
It's probably a low number, to be quite honest. And I understand. I understand what you're saying. You're saying put a maximum number of STRs within the community. That's a very good consideration. Thank you, ma'am.
Right, because then that way, when someone does, sell and no longer does it, it can open up for somebody on a waiting list. But you're not just taking them in. They just started taking all these in the area in Georgia, Blue Ridge, and now there's 2,600, over 2,600 of them. And so then the people that were actually doing it, their income had to drop, and, so it doesn't work business-wise either. But just, that would really, I think, help, where I feel badly for the people that have, 3 of them down their street. So this way, if there's a limit, then, we don't, then, you're just preventing that from escalating.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
And can you make a note of that, city manager, please?
Yes, sir.
What her concerns, actually, I think that's a good idea. Yes, Mr. Stansel.
Yeah, Mark Stansel, Seminole Woods. I was listening to the thing about the $75 being separate, I just couldn't compute that. So, in the Army, we keep things simple, we streamline things. If you charge the $450, immediately put on the calendar for an inspection. Saves time and trouble. You don't have to fool around with anything. It just seems a little backwards. Thank you.
Mr. Stansel, I don't think we've worked out all the specifics, but that's what we're leaning towards. Thank you, sir. Any further public comments? If no further public comments, we'll bring it back to the dais. All we have to do is vote to approve the resolution there, council?
You need a motion.
Oh, okay. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got a second. Ms. Cook, could you call the vote, please?
Vice Mayor Pontieri?
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Norris?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, if I may, really quickly, to the permit limitations, is that preempted by state law?
Yes, Vice Mayor, so the Florida statute does preempt, you can't limit STR rentals at all. It's a topic that's been discussed, but yeah, unfortunately, we can't touch it.
Talked about that early on, yeah.
Well, that's the answer to the
Sorry.
lady's question. We can't limit them. All right, we'll move on to, where are we at? We're on,
The next, Mayor, the next item is a presentation by Miss Virginia Smith on the Americans for Disability Act. It's a great presentation on some compliance things that we need to do, and accompanying Miss Smith is some other team members who are all helping the city to achieve its goal.
good evening, Miss Virginia.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. It's wonderful to be here this evening. If I may take a moment, there are a lot of supporters in our audience this evening. If you could just stand and say hello to the mayor and the council, that would be wonderful. They are here to support the city through all their efforts that we've given to our special needs community thus far and continuing to do so. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys for participating.
Doing this without my glasses. So we're here this evening to discuss all things ADA. And presenting with me this evening is Zach Bauer from IT and Carrie Todd from our Parks and Rec Department. And we're going to give you an overview of everything. Why is this not working? There we go.
Good thing you have IT right next to you.
The almighty guru might need to come up and help them. Oh.
They beat you to it, Doug.
Yeah, Zach's wonderful. He's been a great partner with this too, but it's not switching up. Okay, Doug, what happened? Now it's working.
Yep.
Okay. So today we're going to discuss what the ADA is, department updates, who has responsibility, when and where does the city need to be compliant, how do we achieve compliance, how do we create transition plans, the benefits to being compliant, exceptions to the ADA regulations, training, number of public views of access to our records, as well as options for success. But we're also going to give you a brief introduction into some of the accomplishments that have been done throughout the city. So what is the ADA? On July 26, President George H.W. Bush signed into law the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, which is a comprehensive civil rights law prohibiting the discrimination on the basis of disability. Under this law, people with disabilities are entitled to the rights, privileges, advantages, and opportunities that others have while participating in civic activities. In other terms, it's a law that we all must follow. There are 5 titles in the ADA law. The city is governed under Title II, but we may also have to comply with other titles as well. Title I is the issue of employment. Title II is public services. 3, public accommodations for stores and hotels. 4 is telecommunications, and 5 is miscellaneous. So engineering has provided me with our most recent accomplishments of our ADA compliant facilities. So these are just some pictures we'll go through quickly to show you. So this is showing the front of City Hall, has a push button to access the door to open. Something that I never knew, and I learned from creating this PowerPoint presentation for you this evening, is at the top of stairs is a landing, and that landing is also known as a refuge area. And that refuge area is for people who are disabled in a wheelchair or can't walk downstairs to have a safe place to wait for our fire and rescue to come and get them. So I thought that was really cool, and I never knew that. I just thought it was always an area that is just there, you know? So it was very nice. And the other accommodation we have are higher sinks, so a wheelchair can go under it, and lower sinks as well for the wheelchair to pull up to as well. We have accessible bathrooms, accessible showers at our locker room in our Southern Recreation facility, as well as just regular bathrooms throughout the city at all facilities. We have open automatic doors at the Southern Rec facility. We have panic bars, which is that middle picture where someone can just push it, it'll open, and you can escape. And also we have the elevators here at City Hall, and we have elevators at the Southern Rec as well. A ramp is also located at Southern Recreation. We have a push button for our for the countdown for crosswalks, and something that our Public Works and engineering are working on is having the audible countdown as well. So when you cross the street, it audible counts down 10, 9, and that's going to be for people who are visually impaired. We have, of course, our parking spaces, and we also have our pad mats, which are located at sidewalks and streets and things like that, and those are also for the assistance of the visually impaired. I'm now going to turn this over to Carrie, and she's from our Parks and Rec department, and she'll give you an update on what we provide for programs and services through our Parks and Rec.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to highlight some of the programs that we offer at Parks and Recreation currently. In the fall of 2022, we began an autism spectrum disorder social group at the community center. This program provides a safe and predictable environment to meet and make friends with others living on the spectrum or who are differently abled. This program has grown significantly and continues as we have over 40 young adults participating regularly now. This group meets twice a month, and the participants schedule their own activities ranging from outdoor sports, drum circles, cooking, art projects, games, and indoor fitness. The recent completion of our kayak launch at Waterfront Park includes an ADA-compliant wheelchair transfer platform, which allows those of us in wheelchairs to access the intercoastal waterways. Adaptive tennis is a new program that's offered at our Southern Recreation Center this past fall, and tennis is one of those sports that can be adapted so anyone can play. One of the first pieces of equipment that is ADA compliant the city installed is still in use today at the Aquatic Center, and that is a lift for swimmers to be able to enter the pool. Holland Park Playground offers a glider swing for those in wheelchairs. So in addition to some of those programs that I highlighted, we also have private rentals at the community center for events and activities that are focused for people with disabilities. One is a program for the Palm Coast Flagler County Visually Impaired Support Group. They meet monthly at the community center. We have several nonprofit organizations that rent out rooms for their private events: Vincent's Clubhouse, Yes, You're Invited, Cedar Bridge Foundation, and the Special Olympics has always been a great asset partner for us over the years as well.
Can you go back to that slide real quick? This is, for the people that are remaining in the audience, I'd like to note that this is one of the compromises we made in the short-term rental ordinance. We could have went as far as requiring those on every house with a pool. Do you know how much those lifts, those aquatic lifts cost for a pool?
I wouldn't know.
They are very expensive, and
Right.
that's just showing the level of compromise we did in the previous ordinance on the STRs. We could have actually made them meet all ADA requirements regarding pools.
Right.
So I just wanted to note that.
So of course, there are some challenges to participation, and three of them that I wanted to highlight are acceptance, accommodation, and transportation. With planning, we can achieve a higher percentage of participation from the ADA community for our activities and events in Parks and Recreation. By creating a welcoming environment for everyone, that should be our golden standard. Planning in advance for ADA accommodations to ensure smoother participation. And with public transportation, we could provide opportunities to even more people on a consistent basis.
I'll now turn this over to Zach from IT to give the information technology update.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. I'm Zach Bauer, IT Senior Programmer. I'm just going to touch base briefly on the work and efforts being done on the city website, future mobile app, and documents related to ADA compliance. Not only just because it's a federal requirement, but because we believe it should be at the forefront of anything that we program and develop. So to get started, we currently develop and maintain 2 public-facing websites in-house that need to meet ADA compliance. One being palmcoast.gov, and then the other one being our economic development website, selectpalmcoast.com. Even before the mandate, we would have to work hard to follow best practices to make sure our website is accessible for those with disabilities. The federal mandate doesn't just pertain to websites we've created, but also sites created by third parties that the city displays to the public. Some of these examples are our online permitting portal, as well as our where public can go and pay their utility bill. We also started the process of reaching out to these vendors to make sure that they are aware that this requirement, and that they have plans to keep their sites ADA compliant.
I'd also like to point out that our communications department has been doing a wonderful job, and they are posting compliant on Facebook and social media sites, Instagram and Facebook. So they've already begun doing that as well.
Yep, and we've also started reaching out to these vendors in IT to see, because each public-facing website also has to be ADA compliant. So we've already started that process and going well for that.
And I've also worked with our city attorney to get from our third-party vendors a certificate of compliance, as well as a hold harmless agreement that we are going to be sending to all vendors.
And then, as you all may know, we're in the process of developing a mobile app for the city. During that development process, we're going to be ensuring that all ADA principles will be applied before releasing, and then as well as any updates that we make afterwards. While IT is responsible for ensuring the website itself is ADA compliant, the largest part of this task is making sure that all the documents, such as PDFs or images that are on the website, are also ADA compliant. Each department is responsible for making sure that the documents it has on the city websites are compliant. Right now, we have roughly about 850 documents on palmcoast.gov that need to be reviewed to ensure compliance. And then documents that aren't ADA compliant by the deadline of April 2026 may be placed on the archive website, but we have to be removed from the web. It has to be removed from the main website. The departments are aware of this, and IT is supplying each department with a list of their documents that are currently on the website. Last year, IT purchased a ADA auditing software that will provide us constant reports and audits for our websites. This will help us continually monitor and ensure our websites are compliant to WCAG 2.2. We have been running scans on our 2 sites for several months, and the tool has only identified 3 pages of having medium to high priority to fix, which we believe is a positive reflection on our commitment to best practices. On top of that, we've also recently embedded a ADA accessibility widget to our sites that provide various tools to help individuals with accessibility needs. So I'll transfer it back to Virginia.
Thank you. So the city, as I said earlier, falls under Title II, which applies to all programs, services, and activities that the city offers and provides. And the city does have the obligation to make sure those city contracts, our third-party vendors, do not discriminate against those with disabilities. So Title II applies to all state and local governments, all departments, agencies, special purpose districts, and other instrumentalities of state and local government. In other words, public entities. It applies to all programs, services, and activities of all public entities, from adoption services to zoning regulations. So Title II also states that the contract with other entities that provide these public services have the obligation to ensure that their contractors do not discriminate against people with disabilities. And I know some of it is repetitive, and I apologize. That's how the best way to describe everything for you. So there's 5 administrative requirements under Title II. That is to have the city designate a responsible employee as the ADA coordinator, and currently I take on that responsibility as well. To have a grievance policy published on our website, have the notice to our public, which we do as well for both of those, and conduct evaluations every 3 years. So we're going to be taking it one step further and not doing it just for our infrastructure and our buildings to do that self-evaluation, but we're also going to be including it into our website compliance as well, and develop all those transition plans. And those transition plans will be posted on the city website. So where does the city need to be compliant? As I said, websites, social media platforms, parks, facilities, building code, meetings, events, employment records, permitting, streets and sidewalks, including our multi-youth paths. Identify what areas are in need of upgrading for the assistance, and that we will do under our 3-year evaluations. And when do we need to be compliant by? As soon as possible, but the federal government mandate is April 2026 for the city's website. So we need to make sure everything that is public-facing is ADA compliant on our city's websites.
What percentage would you say we're at right now?
Right now, so the industry average is about 80%. I think we're about 70 to 80% right now.
Thank you.
But that's strictly just our sites. We also have to make sure that different third-party websites are also compliant. And there's also documents that are on the website that would also have to be compliant itself.
So for the past at least 5 or 6 years, the city clerk's office has been publishing the agenda and the minutes in an ADA format, so that it is readable for those that need the assistance. So how do we achieve compliance? We will implement transition plans that include dollars in the budget, identify the current issues and problems, timeline for each issue of when it will be completed, conduct audits and the self-evaluation citywide every 3 years. And then we will also create that transition plan for each department to make sure that we're all compliant. So the benefits to compliance, I have them listed out, but I want to point out one thing is when you get a complaint against you and the DOJ finds that it is valid, it's $75,000, the first violation. The second violation goes to $150,000, And you're also in jeopardy of losing federal assistance from anything that we receive, not just for our website, not just for our Parks and Rec, but it would include everything across the board that you could be subjecting your funding to. So it limits our risk for access and injuries as well. The federal funding, as I said, won't be disrupted. It builds goodwill and positive reputation. It expands your appeal to a significant segment of the population. It levels the playing field for all, and accessibility makes life easier for everyone. It's the right thing to do. So the other thing it helps with is it helps with our citizen engagement and customer service, our aging population, the word of mouth. Socially responsible companies are more attracted to Palm Coast. Communities benefit where everyone can participate, and the biggest benefit is it's the law. So we're in compliance completely, and we're following the law. So this is just a quick overview of how many times our public website has been accessed with regards to records. Nope, this isn't that, sorry. This is our new rule on accessibility. So because we are 50,000 or more persons, we have to be compliant by April 24th of 2026. So how do we make a document accessible for all? WCAG will get you there. And WCAG stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And they have 4 guidelines: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And what are the standards, versions, and levels? You have WCAG 2.0, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and WCAG 3. And they all build upon each other. So if you're at 2.0 and you're doing great, they really want you to bump that up to at least 2.2. And if you're now at 3, that doesn't mean all the requirements that you put in on 2.2 go away. You build upon each one. WCAG 3 is still being created, so that one hasn't been released yet. Third-party compliance and plugins, as we discussed earlier, means that if a state or local government uses that third-party service or a plugin on the website, we have to ensure that it is compliant. We have to make sure that they are completing what they are supposed to do for us. And that's where the 2 forms are going to come in for us as well. Adherence, there's times the city doesn't have to be strictly compliant. For example, strict adherence to WCAG placed an undue burden on a city or fundamentally altered the nature of a digital experience. We don't necessarily have to comply. We strive to comply and help everyone. We do not have to if it fundamentally alters or is an undue burden. A digital experience that does not conform with WCAG may still meet the rule requirements if WCAG violations have a minimal impact on access, meaning people with disabilities can still use the experience as successfully as people without disabilities. Alternatives may be provided, such as accessible versions of an inaccessible content, but only when the technical or legal limitation prevents it from being made accessible. The other is 2 exceptions that are allowed, and it is the ADA law allows for different treatment of a person with a disability in situations where such treatment is necessary for the person to participate. So for example, if a council member has a disability that prevents them from coming to the dais, we can actually utilize our digital experience and let them work from their home to carry out their duties. So that would be considered an accommodation for a council member. The other is there are sometimes situations where it's simply not possible to integrate the people with disabilities without fundamentally altering the nature of the program, service, or activity. For example, moving a beach volleyball program into a gymnasium so a player with a disability could play really fundamentally alters it. But that doesn't mean we can't provide an in-house program in a gym so that the floor is level for a person in a wheelchair to participate. We can absolutely do that. We just can't take that volleyball on the beach and take it away from that, because that alters the nature of that program. So as a top priority, the city's website compliance has to be done by April of 2026, and I'm kind of bringing that back to you each time because we're on a tight timeline. But the city will provide training, create compliant documents, not convert after the facts, convert all forms that are on the website, and we'll also have that archivable website available for all of our documents that exist that are not compliant currently. Additional staff may be required, and that's going to be for discussion with the city manager and city council. And our success is that we will be compliant by April of 2026. So options for success will be archive all records that are available online to be compliant while we're training and make documents accessible. Designate a specific date to archive and separate an area on the website for archived documents. Designate departmental staff, and all of the department directors have done so, to be trained, and all departments to produce all documents in compliance, meaning forms and anything on our website. So we should start now and make all of our documents compliant, and for that we can use, so you create templates. There's another possibility of hiring interns for those departments that have a high priority on the website. For compliance, building, our community development department, as well as our finance department with our budget books, they may need special assistance from professionals that can help us convert some of those documents. You have a big plan that you get in for a house plan. One suggestion from the Southeast ADA was to not put an alternate text on it, but to put a little text on the bottom that says, these are the building plans for 5 Apple Tree Drive. And then that's sufficient enough, according to the Southeast ADA, to be ADA compliant. The resources we need are going to be budgeted dollars, software and training dollars, the dedicated departmental staff, and vendor assistance with converting certain documents. Those budget books are mainly the ones that I'm speaking of. They have it's an Excel spreadsheet, and it pulls in different information from different areas. So it's going to be one of those types that we would need to hire out for. So here's my website views for you that I was speaking of earlier. This is building documents that have been viewed by the public from June 22 through June of 2024. So for June through December 2022, the total hits was 43,881. In 2023, the total views were 80,954. And from January 24 through June 24, the total was 37,849. So can you imagine if we needed to convert all of those documents in order to be accessible? That's going to take a lot. So I'm very pleased that the federal government recognizes that, and also have provided us with providing the archival separate button on our website for these types of documents. And that has to be from April 26th back, that's what would be in the archive. In our regular, all of those would need to be compliant. So additional resources, it was looked at, a lot of council members, I believe it was the previous council had discussed hiring a sign language interpreter to be present at each meeting. So we did a cost estimate for that. The cost per hour is $100 per interpreter per hour. And it's necessary to have 2 sign language interpreters attend any meeting that is over 2 hours long, and so that they rotate and it doesn't hinder the messages being provided. For evening meetings, the price does go up, and that will be in regards to contractual terms. All requests are also billed at a 2-hour minimum. So for the number of hours City Council met in 2024, it would be approximately $30,000 for an interpreter to be present at every City Council meeting. The options that we have available are in person, on demand, or on an as-needed basis, which is what we currently do, and that would be no change to the current process. On demand
That couldn't be accomplished with closed captions?
Closed captioning is after the fact. We don't have the mechanisms, I believe, to do it at the exact same time that the live meeting is going on.
We don't have the technology to do it on a live feed.
Correct.
I know we are looking into some different software that might be able to do that, but we don't have currently anything that does that.
Let me ask you this: when we view the council meetings online at home on the city's YouTube channel. Is that closed caption?
It is afterward, just not during the
Not
live.
on live feed, it's not. Okay,
Correct, yeah.
thank you.
Sorry, on that, have you looked at what the cost of that technology is that you were just referring to?
Not yet. I know we are going to be demoing some software that might look at like the agenda minutes and how all that works, and that is included in it.
So the on-demand, we do have a potential estimate for that, and those services are $1 to $3 per minute. And that would be where we would just call them up and say, hey, we have a 9 a.m. council meeting, we need you to do interpreting services for us. And that would cost $1 to $3 per minute for them to be able to do that for us. Another option is to hire on a sign language interpreter as a part-time staff employee to perform only council meeting interpretation. So that's just some food for thought for consideration.
What about current staff that are qualified in sign language?
We have reached out to staff when there are meetings for certain circumstances that when we need an interpreter, and I wasn't able to secure one because they contacted us the day before. But that we don't have anyone on staff that's qualified to do sign language interpretation. We did have one instance at a previous council meeting where the gentleman spoke only Russian, and we did have a staff person that spoke Russian. So he attended by phone and interpreted for the gentleman that was here at council.
But that's not the same. That's apples and oranges, I think.
Right, it's just an example of, like we have reached out to staff to help us provide assistance.
All right, thank you, Virginia.
Yep. So our next recommended steps would be the policy for document creation using best practices, which is WCAG 2.2. Establish department teams, which we've already done. Create departmental plans, those are in the works. Establish funding, that's where city council and the city manager come into play for what we're going to need. We do partner with our experts. A lot of the 501c3s that I've met with that are here tonight have also volunteered to look at our website once we get some of the things up and running to let us know what are the good and the bad and how easily accessible it was for them to go through. So it's a real live group of partners that we can work with to let us know how we're doing. And do an inventory and an audit of all of our records that we need and identify the top priority records that will need to be converted and put into the website as compliant. And that's establishing the departmental priorities, and then additional software if needed, such as helping us convert PDF documents that we can place on our website. So that is our Americans with Disability Act compliance presentation for you this evening. I thank you for your support, and I look forward to working with everybody as we move forward with this.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions from the dais on this one? Nothing?
I have a question for city manager. So are we anticipating this coming back to a workshop to kind of lay out the different options and the costs of those?
From what staff has told me, the cost, with the exception of a software or two, which would be a discussion during your budget process, staff has indicated to me it's going to be a lot of staff time. So we're going to be trying to balance this with all of our other duties and responsibilities. So as you enter your strategic action plan or we're navigating the budget process, just wanted to let you have this in the front of your mind as another additional role due to federal mandate that we're having to comply with.
Okay, I don't think we need a full workshop, but if city manager could come back to us with the cost of the closed captioning technology versus maybe an on-demand, a virtual signer would be more cost-effective than in-person. Just those options. I don't think we need a full workshop on it, but certainly something that we do need more information on. Particularly because our neighbors, St. Augustine, is a very large population, a large deaf community that we need to consider because we know a lot of them are coming into Palm Coast. So I think that is something that is timely.
No other discussion? Okay, we'll move on to item 6, resolution.
Public comment.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, I'm
you have
sorry.
public comment.
Public comment, I'm sorry. Public comment concerning this presentation. Ms. Johnson, yes.
Hi, I'm Leslie Johnson, P-Section. Great presentation. Miss Virginia, you did a wonderful, wonderful job. I would just simply recommend, and I'm so grateful that you recognize our large deaf community. I married a man who was a quadriplegic, and our best friend was, as he put it, blind in one eye and he couldn't see out of the other. And here I am, profoundly deaf. And so I am really grateful that you are putting this together. I am more than grateful that you're acknowledging our disabled, or actually what I call handicappable community. I would just recommend one thing, that you make it really, really visible and evident that some of these services are available. We've had some deaf folks wanting to come and join us, and we have arranged with Kaylee or Miss Johnston to have a signer here, and when they got here, there was nobody for them. Could have been it fell through, it could have been, a myriad of reasons, right? So, but they don't know the processes to go to get this help. I do know, I believe, Miss Kaylee, do you still have those headphones? People don't know that. So if they're profound like me, I wear ears. So if they're profound, those could be very helpful, but people don't know. So if there could be a way to get that information more out there for people, I would simply just recommend that. Otherwise, great, awesome presentation. Thank you so much for taking care of our handicappables. Thank you, and thank you for letting me speak again.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing no further public comments, we'll move on to item 6.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I just have one more question. I'm so sorry. Have we looked into grants for furthering this?
Funding.
We have explored. It's nothing set in stone yet. Of course, everybody is out there for the same reason, especially right now with that last thrill, but I haven't found any as I know of yet, but that's something we're going to be looking into further.
Okay, great, thank you.
Another resource that may be able to help you with that, Virginia, is the School of the Deaf over in St. Augustine. They may be able to help you with that and know more about the subject than we might, and even volunteer people to sign for our meetings.
Yes, we've reached out to them many times, but they've only given us contacts for local vendors. And our school system is also here this evening, Dr. Holliday and one of the Trails program teachers as well. So we do partner with them to get their input and their information as well.
I think too, maybe some of the local churches, because I know there's a signer at every single mass that I go to, so that might be a resource to maybe look into as well.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anything else, Vice Mayor?
No, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council.
Okay, thank you, Virginia. We'll move to item 6. Council, please.
Resolution 2025-XX, repeal and replace Housing and Urban Development Section 504 policy.
Thank everyone for coming out. We really appreciate your support.
I saw a UCF hat, go Knights.
Okay. Good evening, Council. I'm Jacqueline Gonzalez with the Community Development Site Development Coordinator. I'm here to discuss with you our ADA Compliance Code Policy 504 for housing. I'm piggybacking off of Virginia today because I've already started working on our ADA compliance for our housing policy. So we needed to do some updates to that policy in accordance with our funding for HUD. Being a part of HUD Urban Development, Section 504 is the Rehabilitation Act from 1973, which enables us as a participating jurisdiction entitlement. That means that we would have to have this section as a part of our housing policy, regulating non-discriminatory basis for disabilities. Basically, Section 504 stipulates no qualified individual with a disability in the United States shall solely be by reason of his or her disability, be excluded from participating in, be denied the benefits of, or be subject to discrimination in any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Other words, all recipients and subrecipients of our federal grant that we get for CDBG, we have to comply with the Section 504 and implement those regulations. We currently do have Policy 504, so I did updates to the entitlement policy in order for us to be able to keep our community funding under the CDBG program. So basically, some of the updates that I made, general clarification to the reviews, regulation, including policy definitions. In Chapter 2, we did some communication, providing the types of devices and use of aids that would be accessible to people who have disabilities who want to participate in our program. Employment discussion about not prohibiting or reasonable combinations for people who are working with the City of Palm Coast who participate with our housing program. Program accessibility is what we touched in Chapter 4, giving guidelines and including participants in facilities that are accessible with people with disabilities, as well as enforcing, reviewing and administrating compliance issues and maintaining the city policy. Also, that was something I had to do in Chapter 6 was update the grievance procedures and put resolution and details for filing complaints and processing complaints with the city under our housing administration program. Ms. Virginia Smith talked about the self-evaluation and transition plans. I've already done that. It was included as a part of your package for the CDBG program, and those will be submitted to our HUD representative to make sure that we're in compliance with our ADA code. Mine is really sweet and short. I basically just did some updates, and you guys will probably be getting more updates from me. I can honestly say that our housing website is in compliance with ADA. All our forms have been ADA since I've taken over the program in the last 3 years. I make sure that our forms are ADA compliant. So I will be working with Ms. Smith to make sure that we administer and keep moving forward in the ADA accessibility code. So basically, our Citizen Advisory Task Force recommended to the City Council to approve the Resolution 2025 to repeal and replace the HUD Section 504 policy for our CDBG housing program so that we can move forward with the continued funding of that grant. Any questions?
All right, thank you, ma'am. I'll bring it back to the dais. Vice Mayor, you look like you're
Just
chomping
thank
at
you.
the bit.
Just thank you for being on the spot, Ms. Gonzalez. Great job.
No problem.
Other issues, concerns?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the resolution.
Thank you, sir. Can I get a second?
Second.
We'll open it up to public comment, please. Anyone have anything to say about this resolution? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close it from public comments. Any more discussion from the dais? Could you call to vote, Ms. Cook?
Vice Mayor Pontieri?
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Norris?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. We're moving on to item 7. Council, please.
Mr. Mayor, item 7 is being withdrawn. After talking with the consultant, city staff decided that it does not need to be updated, so it's not going to be presented and is being withdrawn from the city council.
Okay, thank you so much. Item 8, resolution. Council.
Yep. This is, let me read this incorrectly before I get to my presentation. Resolution 2025-XX, amending city council's policies and procedures. So we've had a workshop on this. This is presenting your new policies and procedures, this council's. I have made the edits or suggested changes that this council has directed city staff and myself to change. They are in your packets. Standing by here for any questions or anything like that.
Do we want to do questions first or a motion to approve?
Mayor, if I can, just one administrative thing that our executive team and I discussed is your workshop schedule. In your efforts to try and make sure that the public is able to be heard during both a morning meeting and an evening meeting, we were wondering if you would allow the workshop schedule to be the first workshop is an evening workshop and the second workshop is a day workshop. So your meeting schedule would be night, night, day, day.
I have no problem with that. Anyone on the council have a problem with that? The whole point of the matter was to try to get more participation, more time for people to come for night meetings. And I think we compromised on it a little, so I don't have any problems with it.
Mayor, would it be good for that to go in effect in February? We've already advertised the meeting for next week. A lot of people are accustomed to the morning workshop, so maybe it's in effect
February.
Okay.
Can I get consensus on that? Everyone's good with that? Okay, any other discussion? Open it up for public comment. Anyone have any public comment concerning our policies and procedures? Seeing no one come forward, I'll close public comment, come back to the dais. Call the vote? I'm sorry, we need a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve our updated policies and procedures.
Thank you, sir. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, I'm sorry, I should have did that first. I'm sorry, council. One more time, public comments concerning this resolution. Public, our policies and procedures. Seeing no one come forward, we'll come back to the dais. Call the vote, please, Ms. Cook.
Vice Mayor Pontieri?
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Norris?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to item I, consent, 9, resolution. I'm sorry, these are all consent. Does anyone have any discussion on the consent items? We've all had our meetings and discussed these. All these are currently budgeted, correct, City Manager?
Yes, sir.
So that's the main thing. One's dealing with, what was that?
Fire, medical, supplies, and
Medical.
equipment.
Yes, ma'am, and the enhanced 911. So I have no issues. No issues? Okay, if we'll close consent. We'll move on to public participation.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
so two things, we need a motion, and then we need public comment.
I'm sorry, my bad. I'm sorry. Can I get a motion to approve the consent items?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second, call the vote. Oh, I'm sorry, public comments. I'll get there eventually, y'all. This is all new to me, too. Any public comments concerning any of the consent items? Seeing no one come forward, we'll come back to the dais. Motion, we've already have a motion. Call the vote.
Pontieri?
Yes.
Councilmember Gambaro?
Yes.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Mayor Norris?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so we've finished with consent items. We'll move on to item J, public participation. Any remaining members of the city that would like to have their public comments? Yes, Ms. Johnson.
Again, Leslie Johnson from the P section. I just have one more thing to say. Having ordinances and rules and things like that are really important things, and I applaud you for attempting to work your way through those, and I appreciate the ordinances and the changes that you're making. I would also recommend, however, that not only you do the ordinances and whatnot and that they are followed, but they are enforced. In the days to come, we will be bringing you some information how the ordinances are not being followed, they are not being enforced. And this is something that I had brought up at the last term, probably a reason why they were all voted out and y'all were voted in. And so I just want to make that term known. Enforcement. Enforce those ordinances, please. Don't sit there and take their word for it. Get out there and don't count on the neighbors to call because there's a trailer in the road, okay, or in somebody's driveway. We need enforcement, and unfortunately, we need a policing entity to do that. And that's for inspections, that's for the new builds, that is for parking, and other ordinance issues, okay? So thank you very much for that consideration.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Mr. Stone.
Hope you had all a good holiday and Christmas. I don't know if you noticed, but when you come down Seminary Woods and you're in the left-hand lane to make the left-hand turn, the timing is off. It's off frequently, and in fact, when you get to the gym, Planet Fitness, you could sit at that light for 6-7 minutes before it turns left to make the turn. And also, when I come from Flagler, going down Corbett and hitting Palm Coast Parkway and trying to make the left to go north, you could sit there for 6-7 minutes. There are a lot of lights that are way out of sequence. And as you will know, Mayor, Carol works for the state. When she travels right down one, when there's a light problem in their county, they take care of it almost immediately. They're right on it. You know, I reported on Corbett because I flew up to Atlanta to see my kids for Christmas. I reported that 2 days before Christmas, and I don't think it was ever taken care of. In fact, I was sitting there for 8-9 minutes. There was a guy behind me, honking his horn. I said, I'm not going because the car's coming down, going to the tolls. Some of the trees aren't cut, so you can't see the traffic. I just wanted to make you aware of it.
Thank you, sir. I hope you had a good holiday, Mr. Stone.
How you doing? Eddie Lang, R section. I just wanted to come here today, and I waited till the end here. Since we had our ADA thing today, I want to invite all of you personally to our ribbon cutting for Vincent's Clubhouse Enrichment Center for Autism down in European Village on the 21st. I have invitations for you, so if you don't mind if I come up. And I hope you guys can all make it and kind of see what we're doing. It's kind of a first of its kind here in the county or even in 3 counties. So we're really trying to make a difference. Right now we have our adult program going on with, learning life skills and trying to be able to fend for themselves and maybe, move on and get jobs and things like that. So we're in the beginning stages, but we'd love you guys to come check it out.
And that's on the 21st? Thank you, sir.
Can we maybe work with Mr. Lang to do some type of press release, help him out on this, Brittany?
Thank you, sir. Yeah, if we could post it on the city website, that'd be great. Any further comments? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Stansel, go right ahead.
Yeah, Mark Stansel, Seminole Woods. I want to reiterate what the lady was talking about, enforcing ordinances and codes, and, it's great we have them, but this is not a small town anymore, and it's growing, it's big. We're a city, and we need to be a little more proactive and enforce what we have, because a lot of citizens aren't happy that we're not doing it. We need to take care of the city for the future and now, so let's be a little more proactive with our enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Denise Henry, P section. I just wanted to make a comment since he had talked about traffic. I think our transportation department does need to work on light changes, especially for pedestrians, because I see people on bikes and there's more people walking, and they get to the intersection. I live near Whiteview, and they can stand there in for minutes and minutes and minutes. And I live near Pittsburgh, and if you went to Pittsburgh, all the lights stop and all 4 pedestrian lanes go at once. And I just think they need to work on that better, because then you get jaywalkers because they're waiting so long. So I think that's something that needs addressed.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further public comment? Seeing none come forward, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the dais.
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
I'd like to address the comment, I believe it was Mr. Stone made about the traffic. Turn lanes aside, the traffic light timing is atrocious. The cycles are too long. They have trip and they have time operating at the same time, which throws one off. It throws the other off. They work against each other. It's really gotten to the point where it takes you about 10 minutes to go a mile on Route 100. And we need to do something about that because it also inhibits the flow of emergency vehicles. So I understand we might be addressing that with the state, but it can't be too soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So just in terms of the enforcement of code and things like that, I agree that active versus passive is where we need to be on that. Light timing has been discussed a bunch. I actually asked Chief of Staff about any programs that we're working on in terms of algorithms, AI, to utilize the fiber loop network that we have at any of the lights to try to have that, utilize that technology to cause it to be more efficient. We know it's a problem. I see complaints about it daily on social media. So we're going to continue to push that forward, try to use some technology to make that more efficient, especially considering our infrastructure issues. And then in terms of anything else, I think that's it.
I just want to recognize some of our staff members. We received a letter, I believe all of council did, from David Brandon with the Flagler County Veterans Day Parade Planning Committee. And it just says that he's writing to express profound gratitude for the support and leadership shown by the city of Palm Coast in making this year's Veterans Day Parade a resounding success. It also says this parade is being hailed as the largest in Flagler County's history, a remarkable achievement impossible without your commitment to honoring the veterans of our U.S. Armed Forces. So I want to thank staff. I want to thank the Veterans Day Planning Committee. Mr. Brandon, thank you for all that you do. And I also want to recognize the two employees that he specifically pointed out, which is Matt Johnston with Public Works and Gina Catalano with Parks and Rec. So thank you for their efforts. It's so important that we continue to honor and recognize our veterans in the community. So I'm just super proud of our city for doing that. Excuse me, the other thing I wanted to bring up, we had previously discussed free Zamba. Councilman Stevens, I know this was something that you were pretty vocal about, and I think that bringing this up now is timely because when I looked at the pull-in facilities assessment that we asked city staff to circulate to us, the thing that jumped out at me was that Frida Zamba, well, I should say this aquatic center, the Palm Coast Aquatic Center, is not even ADA compliant. So, you know, making even the locker rooms ADA compliant would be really expensive. And so we just need to be very mindful that any facilities, obviously, that are being built now are obviously ADA compliant, but even something I would say is simple. It's not simple, but as important as that is something that would have to be upgraded in this facility. So I want to continue to try to find a resolution for an aquatic center in our city. I think it's vital, especially for our young community and everybody, actually, for our elder community as well. It's such a healthy exercise for our retirement community. But I just don't know that this is the way. So I just hope that we can continue to look at options for an aquatic center. And, as we look at appropriations, I know tomorrow's legislative day. So it's really important that we do keep this on the forefront. I'm happy to continue to explore this with you, Councilman Stevens. I see this as a very big challenge. So hopefully we can remain open-minded as to how we can get a new aquatic center into our city.
Councilman Gambaro.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just 2-3 items that I'd like to get consensus from the council on as we look to tackle some of these issues. One of them, Vice Mayor, is the pool. We're losing money, all the way around. It's an old pool, it needs to be replaced, but we still have a requirement based on our citizens that are telling us that they use the pool. We have in our strategic priorities, for the state, the YMCA, right? We all agreed to kind of move in that direction. And maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a private entity that can come in and soak up those maintenance costs and maybe run it better than we're doing it and maybe even make it ADA compliant. I don't know, but I would just ask consensus on that, from the council for staff to kind of bring options back to us just to consider. Because I think it's an important requirement, and I think it's a need moving forward. The second one is I spent some time looking at the financials, and for the general public, These are the financials for our golf course, our city's golf course. And we lose hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. And this is also, it's on the website, so if you want to go check it out, I encourage you to please look at it. And so I would ask the council's consensus to look at options of, how we can run it better. Do we need to sell it? But still keep it a golf course, because I think that's important that land remains a golf course for our community. Could an investor come in and turn it into something different? It becomes a destination, get it back on the tax rolls. I don't know. But I think those are all options that we should consider, because losing an average of $500,000 a year, it's not good. It's not, taxpayer dollars. And then the third item is the Stancils have brought up Sesame Lane. We've heard complaints about other turns, things of that nature. As we go into our budget, cycle, I think it's important that we take a comprehensive look. Let's not just attack one problem. Let's take a look at all the issues that we have. Specifically, Sesame and Seminole Woods, right, and things of that nature, so that we can forecast and budget to address those items. Because some of these items that the citizens are telling us to tackle right away, we may not have the funding for it. And so let's take a look. I'm keeping a list of all the issues that's been brought to our attention, and I think it's important that we specifically address those issues in our budget workshop cycle moving forward. So there's 3 items that I think are important, and I think it's I would appreciate consensus to the staff to come back with us as options so we can consider them. I think we should put everything on the table.
So is the council good with those 3 items? Or you good, city manager? You got them down?
I did take notes.
Sesame, the pool, and the golf course.
Yes, if that's a consensus.
Really, we don't need to be bleeding money like that on the golf course. But go ahead, Mr. Stevens.
As far as Frida Zamba Pool is concerned, it is already somewhat ADA compliant. It has a lift so that the people who are in wheelchairs can be lowered into the water. I question as to whether or not something has to be made ADA compliant if it's going to be repaired and not replaced. I think what's needed at Frida Zamba Pool is repairs and bringing it up to snuff, not a replacement. As far as the golf course, before we even consider selling it, we should look into passing a resolution, a covenant, making that property for perpetuity, either a golf course or used for public recreation, so that someone doesn't come along, buy it, say we're going to make a golf course, and then turn it into condos. That's happened before. So I think that we should look into that in accordance with Mr. Gambaro's comment.
So what I'm hearing, and maybe you're hearing, city manager, maybe we should put this on a workshop and be able to discuss it, and don't make the mistake of thinking we're moving forward and putting out that we're trying to sell off the golf course. No, we just want to improve our community, and me and Mr. Hurst, we had our meeting just last week, right, James? And I wholeheartedly agree that we can't be bleeding money on something as simple as a golf course, and being competitive with other golf courses, and it's a big deal. That's big money being lost. So I have no problem with that. Anyone have a problem with us adding those 3 things if they're not already on a workshop?
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I just, for clarity on the turn lane, because I've had a lot of back and forth correspondence with staff on the turn lane that you referenced, Councilman Gambaro. And I know that staff they've been very responsive to me as far as looking into putting in a turn lane, the cost, et cetera. So I don't know if maybe it needs to be a strategic action plan to do a an inventory in the city to see where turn lanes might be necessary, both right and left. From what I've gathered, the right turn lane is a little more cost effective than the left turn lane. That sounds a little backwards, but that seems to be what the financials write out as far as what I've seen. But But I think that could parlay into a good SAP priority to see, how we can improve traffic, because you have to have certain warrants for like stop signs and stoplights, but you don't for certain types of turn lanes. So it could be something where we kind of don't have to have these regulatory benchmarks in order to improve the traffic flow. So I don't know, maybe city manager, if it parlays nice into a SAP priority that we need to definitely consider. But I guess I'm kind of wondering if we're not going to make it, like if we're going to put on a workshop now, what exactly are we workshopping? Is it something like that, or is it just Sesame and Seminole alone?
Let's identify let's rack and stack the issues that have been brought to us, right? And look at them and identify what are the regulatory requirements to make the changes, what are the costs associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
If we can make the changes now, let's do it. And if we all agree that that's what we want to do, then let's go do it. But if we don't have the funding to go do it, or we've got to conduct a study in order to ensure that we meet regulatory requirements, then, let's put it kind of into the SAP bucket. But, I mean, it doesn't have to be. I'm open for discussion. I have this on my to-do list for last year, and given that it's the new year, I want to make sure we keep moving forward. Yeah, never retreat, right? Never surrender. So yeah, that's... I'm happy to look at it either way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So you're good, city manager?
Yes, Mayor, I took those 3 notes.
Well, what you want? She's written, no, ma'am, public comments closed. I will say this, we have, as far as the signals are concerned, a big problem we're having right now is State Road 100. And we sent that letter to DOT, and they kind of scaled back their day working, and they're going to move forward at night only, right?
Yes, sir, and our meeting with them is scheduled for January 15th.
Okay, so we're doing everything we can, and the community needs to understand, those lights on State Road 100 they're under the control of DOT for that construction. So we can't do anything. We have no control over those. But I think the traffic in the past few days, it seems like it's a bit better. Now, school's getting back into session, so we'll see. But I think we're doing better. We're doing the best we can. And we're going to keep leaning forward and trying to accomplish getting all our signals. I've seen in other parts of the city where we're having problems with signals. So was that everyone's comments as far as the city council? So can I finish up for us and go to city manager? Okay, first thing I'd like to say is please pray for our deputies and firefighters that are out there. We have a situation going on right now. I haven't looked at my phone, so I haven't gotten any updates, but
I have an update, Mayor.
I'm sure the city manager would give it to me. You want to give it to us where everybody can hear?
Sure. Our fire police officer has had significant injuries and is far from out of the woods, but he is awake and alert and talking with our team.
Thanks be to God. Okay, that's great. So keep those people in your prayers. And also, we posted on the city Facebook today, I have established mayor office hours. They'll be from Wednesdays and Thursdays from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And you'll have to call up the numbers on the page. You can call and make an appointment. And the only way that'll shift is if I have something that's more urgent that I have to take care of. Let's see. We talked about the lights. That's all I have. Over to the attorney. Counsel, you got anything for us?
It's not really city business, but I just think it's an important thing. President Carter's funeral, state funeral, I believe will be happening next week. As a person who participated in President Bush's funeral, it's a very important process. I think we should all observe. It doesn't happen very often, but it is an important process of our country's history. So just bringing that to everyone's attention.
Okay, thank you, sir. Well, hey, one caveat for me before we go to the city manager. I've had this discussion with Sheriff Staley, and my thoughts that I put out while campaigning was State Road 100 needs to be 6 lanes, 3 lanes each way with turn lanes. So I hope we can apply as much pressure as we can to the state to make it so, because I can tell you right now, when we came up the Palm Coast to take a look at a model home over in the east section, State Road 100 was a 2-lane road, and we were backed up all the way to the interstate back then. So it's an ongoing issue on State Road 100. So just be aware that we're doing everything we can, and we are leaning forward, and we are pressuring organizations to help support us. So with that, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
And Mayor, thank you for that. The DOT is going to come and present their work plan to you at a workshop in February, so that's a good opportunity for council to apply some pressure. I just had two quick updates. As Ms. Pontieri mentioned, Wednesday is our legislative delegation meeting at the County Government Services Building, where the city will be presenting your adopted priorities. And then my second update is, as we're leaning into the future, I thought it might be beneficial for the council to be given a presentation on the comprehensive plan. So the previous city council adopted the first read of the ordinance, and second read is due and approved by April 3rd so that we comply with the state guidance that's before us. So I thought it might be beneficial for us to come give you a brief overview and then also understand what the state comments were back that we needed to make adjustments to the plan. So just wanted to see if you have the pleasure for that to be a future workshop item.
I have no problem with it. We need it.
This is the award-winning comprehensive plan, correct?
Yes, on Thursday, we're going to receive an award for our comprehensive plan.
If I may, I would also like to ask for consensus. Within that comp plan, we added a new land use designation, which was master plan mixed use. It has a lot of elements that were very concerning to me. I didn't get as much support from previous council as I would have liked, as far as kind of looking at some of those elements with a little bit of a closer eye to what the implications could be as far as what could actually be built within that land use designation, particularly when looking at live local. So I would like to revisit those elements, particularly now that we have a new council. If we could include in that workshop what exactly the master plan mixed use is, and the elements and the changes to, I guess, the new elements that we don't currently have in our land use designations.
I'm wholeheartedly behind that. As some of you may know, I've had some issues with the comp plan. So we need to all get on the same sheet of music, and because of sunshine laws, we can't do it. I can't call Vice Mayor and say, hey, this is what I think. We can't do it like that. We have to do it in this open forum. So I think it's a splendid plan, city manager, and make it so, number one.
Understood. That's my comments, Mayor.
Okay, with that, would ask, we're good, council?
Move to adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.